My name is Michael Train, if you want. Now, what is eBay? eBay is an online auction website, and in recent years it has become an e-shop. So, if you're an old fuddy-duddy who struggles with your tablet computer and has to ask the grandchildren how to send an email, then eBay is not for you. eBay is not for you. Roll BT. Hello, this is the Terry Nutlob Model Railway Station, a light here for all things model railways. Welcome back. Today we're going to have a little talky bit about eBay and how I buy things on eBay, and I'm going to try and give you some advice on what to do and how to try and end up with some successful purchases and not be disappointed. Now, as Michael said right at the start there, if you're not really into the computer, if you struggle a bit with the internet and you're not happy, then as he said, eBay isn't for you. And in this episode, I'm not going to go through all the how you work eBay and how you actually click the buttons, etc. I'm going to actually assume that you know how to go on eBay, how to actually operate your account. And I'm just going to be giving you some tips in buying model railway items, in particular on eBay. Of course, these tips apply to anything that you could buy on eBay, but I'm actually going to concentrate on model railway items with specifics about buying locomotives and accessories and stuff like that. So let's see how we get on. Right, so the first thing that we have to remember with eBay, as we saw in the introduction, is that it's split into two basic sections nowadays. You've got the auction, which is obviously, as it sounds, it's an auction where people bid over a period of time, normally a week. And we've got the e-shop, which is actually getting a larger part of eBay now, where either private people or a lot of the time now shops or these just online shops sell their merchandise direct to the public at a buy it now price. So you don't bid, you just buy it. So in order to explain this in a simpler way, we're going to split this into two now. And the first one we're going to deal with is in the form of the e-shop and a buy it now. And then we're going to be going on to an auction, which tends to be more private people. So the first question, of course, we have to ask ourselves is, why are we even going on eBay? Well, of course, you know, there's obviously loads of other ways you can buy model trains. And as I've said before in other episodes, I would always recommend that you go to your local model shop and support them firstly. If you haven't got a local model shop, then of course you can always shop via the big online retailers. But we all know these big retailers, in whichever country you are, they'll be different, but they're all available in model railway magazines on the internet. And of course, there are other items that these aren't either stocked at or not sold via. And with eBay, the one enormous advantage that eBay has is it has a fantastic search engine. So by that, I'm meaning you can type in either the exact description and it will always take you straight to that item if you know the item number or the exact description for that item. But also just by putting in, and this is an example that I did on eBay just the other week to test it myself, I put in Bachmann Midland and then left it, and of course it came up with various Bachmann Midland region locomotives or coaches. By putting in Bachmann Midland with sound, it came up with their new Midland sound locomotive. Straight away, it's the first choices. And so that way, if you don't know numbers or whatever, you can actually find it. And of course, you can always use eBay just as a search engine like that, just to get actually reference numbers or item numbers, which eBay does exceptionally well. And then you can go onto other websites armed then with that number and make a purchase. However, the one advantage with eBay over a lot of the bigger websites is they support the small retailers, the cottage industries, whatever you want to call them, who often have unusual items that the big retailers don't sell. A lot of 3D printing firms that are little cottage industries. They work off eBay and sell their items on eBay. And I bought many small scenic items from eBay that I've not seen anywhere else. So let's just get into the idea of when we're buying in the Buy It Now section, the two main things we need to remember. And they are, know your subject. So if it's a locomotive, a coach, a wagon, a scenic item, anything at all, know what you're buying. Now that sounds a bit strange, so I'll explain it. You need to know what you want, whether there are other types of locomotives or designs about that are similar, and so that you don't buy the wrong thing. If you know your subject before you go into it, as I said with that Bachmann Midland, I know the price in shops. So straight away, looking at the Buy It Now prices, I knew that some were a little bit too high. The majority are pretty much in the middle, and I can see a bargain when I see one. You won't get fantastic bargains with the Buy It Now. Occasionally you do, but most of the time these are retailers and they know the prices, so they'll be selling them at pretty much the correct price. You won't be getting the bargains like you do in the auction section. But if you want to buy something, particularly new items, you will normally find them on sale in the Buy It Now section. The other thing to remember is never assume. Now this stands with anything, of course, but particularly on eBay. Read the description, check the numbers, always check all of the pictures accurately. We'll go into this in a little bit more detail in a minute. But never assume the item that looks like the one you want is the one you want. Pictures can be deceptive. A lot of engines look similar. A lot of accessories in particular look similar. Never assume it's the right scale for you unless it says HOON, TT, whatever scale it is. Unless it actually specifies the scale, never assume just because it looks right, it's going to be right for you. A lot of people can make mistakes by buying the wrong size and the wrong item. If it's bought from a big retailer on eBay, they will normally accept returns. But if you buy something from an independent retailer via eBay and you've bought something that, say, as an example, is TT scale, and further down in the description you didn't read it and it's described as TT, and they don't accept returns because they may have printed a one-off just for you. If you bought that on eBay and you haven't read the description properly, you've just assumed it was 00 gauge and it was actually TT, then you're going to be struggling to get your money back, because you actually have to think of how the retailers have maybe 3D printed a one-off item just for you, and now you don't want it because you didn't read the description properly. So never assume, know your subject, and you're halfway there with Buy It Now. So let's just break this down even further and have some tips on what to look for actually on the site. Okay, so all of these items that we're going to go through next all work in conjunction with each other. So we're going to jump about a bit back and forward, and you'll understand it as we go. So the first thing that we're looking at in the Buy It Now section, after we've decided that we know what we want to buy and we're sure what we're looking at, is the price. Obviously the price is important. There are very varying prices on eBay. Some people that are private sellers overprice what they are selling. They're not trying to rip you off as such, but they obviously privately value things much higher than retailers. So therefore the price is very much open to independent views. And if the price is too high, the simple answer is don't buy it. You know what you want to spend on an item, and if the price is too high, don't sort of start complaining and saying, well, it's outrageous and they're ripping me off. Simply don't buy it. eBay is there for everyone, and if people want to try to sell something at a very high price and they think it's worth that, then the market will actually show whether that's right or wrong. So let's just say price is down to you. You know what you want to spend, so we'll move straight on. Now, the next thing to look at is the seller. Now, if the seller is a private person, then we'll be going down into the lower ranks. But if the seller is one of the big retailers, and a lot of the big retailers do sell on eBay in the Buy It Now section, then the next tip I would say to you is go straight away from eBay, make a note of the price that they've got, go direct to their website and look what price that item is on their website. You'll often find it's as much as £10 cheaper buying it direct from them, because they put the price of the seller's fees that they have to pay on eBay, they just add that to the price of the item on eBay. However, if it's one of the smaller retailers, the next thing to do is to check where they are. Now, you'll find their location right at the bottom, scroll down and find out where they are. If they're in the UK, great. Of course, if they're in Europe or even further afield, such as Japan, then you're going to be paying a lot in postage and also a lot in import taxes. And you have to include that in the price. It won't be in the Buy It Now price. That will be an add-on afterwards once you've actually committed to buy it. So bear that in mind, particularly items from Japan, etc. You can pay £30 to £40 on import duty. So what appears quite a good price actually can be quite expensive once you've added postage and tax on. Something to bear in mind. The next thing to do is look at the feedback. Now, a lot of people on eBay have got 100% feedback. That's great. Some not quite as high as that, but anything certainly below 90, be very dubious of them. If they sell hundreds of thousands of items and they've got feedback of about 95, then that's okay. But once you get down to somebody who's only sold maybe 100 items and he's only got 90% feedback, that's suggesting that 1 in 10 people aren't happy with what they bought. And I would immediately not continue looking at that and just go straight onto something else. There's plenty of sellers and plenty of items on eBay. There's no point risking your money with somebody who's not got good feedback, because you'll probably end up getting something that you're not happy with. So check the feedback and also look at what else they sell. Now, a lot of the retailers, obviously on eBay, if they're big model railway retailers, you can see other items that they have for sale. And if they're all model railway related or model related, possibly Airfix kits, etc., you know you're safe because you're dealing with a model or a hobby shop. They might also be selling brushes or paints, etc., all the sorts of things to do with modelling. That's fine. But be wary if you see a very low price on an item. They've got very good feedback, but when you look at their other items, they're one of these retailers that sells everything. A lot of them are based in Manchester and London. They will tend to sell everything from plastic cake stands, toys, all sorts of weird and wonderful things, push bikes, seat covers. Often they sell women's clothes, etc., etc. And these people, I'm not saying you can't get a good deal with them, but often they buy on bulk. And when they say that things are in new condition or they're excellent runners, etc., what they're actually doing is just reading the description off the back of the box and posting it on eBay. They're not experienced with model railways, and they're just reading the blurb and passing it on. Now, I've bought stuff from them in the past, particularly scenic items, which you know aren't particularly easy to go wrong, and you can get some good items from them. Often they will give a very good discount compared to the bigger retailers, because they buy in bulk and just want to shift these items out. But if you're buying an actual locomotive, etc., from them, again, I would be very wary. I've never bought locomotives or rolling stock from these retailers, because there is a chance that it will be of dubious quality. I don't want to criticize any of them. Some of them are very good retailers, but they're all a little bit hit and miss, and some of them are what used to be market traders that now just sell on eBay. So always look at what other items they have to sell. If you're happy with that and they're selling hobby items, it's a great price. They're in the UK. Read the description fully, as we've already said. Make sure it's the right item for you. It's the right scale. It's not broken. It's fully working. And read all of the description. Don't just read the short description. Click on description and read the whole description all the way to the bottom, as well as looking at every single picture. Don't just look at one picture. If it's a locomotive, look at all of the pictures showing all of the sides, because again, I've seen stuff described as like new, and when you flip them round on the other picture, the seller has actually shown pictures all the way round, and there is damage or a mark possibly to the other side. So never just go by the first photograph. Always go through all the photographs and really have a good look at them. Particularly if you're buying something like a locomotive, you're spending maybe 60, 80, even more on this item. You want to make sure you're getting something good. Really study the photographs. Don't just flick through them. Have a good look. Click on each photograph, zoom into it. Make sure all the buffers are there. Make sure the couplings are there. Make sure, and if it's new, it's described as new. Obviously, it should be. All the packaging should be there. All of the information, the accessory pack, all the instructions, etc., etc. Everything should be there. If anything is missing, I would just say leave it, because if the retailer, the seller, is describing that as new and it's got broken parts or damage to it or missing instructions or the box is damaged, then in my opinion, it's not new, and those people are selling things that you are going to be disappointed with. I've bought things like that in the past, and I've bought some lemons, believe you me. I've thought, it's okay, I'll take a chance. I'm sure it's just a description. But people that describe things as new, like new, rather than just the word new, often those items have something wrong with them. So once we've read the description fully, another top tip: if there's only one item, such as a rare item, maybe something that sold out years ago, and one retailer has just one left, and you really want that, then buy it, as long as the price is right and everything else is okay. But if they say they have 10 in stock and you don't necessarily need it this minute, put it on the watch list. Just put your little heart by the item, put it on the watch list, and you will find, not in every single case, but a lot of cases, particularly the small retailers, within a couple of days will come back with an offer, and they'll have knocked maybe £2, £3, £4 off. Sometimes, depending on the price, they'll knock as much as £10 to £15 off. Now, on an engine that say was already £110 and you thought was a good price, if they knock another £10 off and bring it down to 100, this is where you can start to get some bargains. So if they've got 10 available, even 3 or 4 available, just hang on for a second, put it on the watch list, leave it a couple of days, and then see if they make you an offer. Of course, if they make you an offer and you're happy with that, then again, as with all of these, go ahead and make your purchase. Don't forget, if it doesn't turn up or it's not as described, you can get your money back with eBay. The only problems you're going to have is if you haven't read the description, you haven't looked where they are, and they're in Japan or another continent, and the taxes and all of the postage will then be down to you. You can't get a refund on that. That's just down to you because you didn't read the description. That's why it's so important. Know your subject, read the description, check the seller out, basically go through this list, as I've said, and then if you're happy with all of that, go ahead. Anything that makes you dubious, anything that makes you think, well, I'm not sure, leave it. Never go ahead with something on eBay you're not happy with, because that gut feeling of, well, I'm not sure, if you're thinking that, it's probably true. So walk away, because I can assure you the same item or a very similar item will be listed by another seller in a week or two. eBay has constantly new items coming on every single minute of the day, every day of the year. So always hold on. Never buy something because you think it's my only chance to get it. Something will always come up later. I've done this with very rare and unusual Swiss locomotives. I've thought, I've got to get it now. It's the last chance. You leave it, maybe with something very unusual, maybe you have to wait 2 or 3 months. But sure enough, it will reappear from another seller on eBay. So always wait. But if you're happy with everything there, go ahead. Now let's have a look at the auction part, because the rules there are slightly different. Right, just before we move on to the auction side of eBay, Desmond, who's been sitting up on top of the blackboard all the episode there, paying great attention, wanted me to raise the subject of buying electrical items on eBay. And it's a very good point, because there are some new items and certainly second-hand items on eBay that I would say, if you don't know your electronics, steer clear of. If you're buying transformers, controllers, any electric item from a retailer, please, if you don't know what you're doing, buy them from a main retailer in the UK. Because, and if you're into electronics and you know what I'm talking about, this will make sense. I've seen a transformer, it's a wall transformer, 15 volt AC transformer, and it had that symbol. Now, if you don't know what that symbol means, then that's actually meaning it's a DC. Described as a 15 volt AC transformer. Obviously, it's coming from China. They're not trying to cause a problem, but their translation and their concept is they're meaning it's a transformer for AC current. And by showing you the label on the transformer, they think they're doing the right thing. And that means 15 volt DC. The symbol for 15 volt AC is a line with a wavy line underneath. If you don't know that, then please steer clear of buying things like transformers and controllers from China or anywhere where the description isn't accurate. And of course, if you don't understand electronic symbols, etc., you won't know that the description is accurate. So please buy transformers and electronic items unless you know what you're buying from a main retailer. So let's get on with the auction side of eBay. Now we've satisfied Desmond with his little health and safety tip. Okay, so finally we're getting to the last part of eBay, which is the auction section. Now, with the auction section, of course, you're going to have retailers that are selling stuff second-hand, in good condition, bad condition. You get everything. Now, we've been talking about locomotives, but of course, this whole section is talking about anything model railways. So we've got scenic items, buildings, rolling stock, everything. And when we get into the auction section is when we start to get stuff that is clearly damaged and people are selling it as spares or repairs, or they're actually selling items as damaged. Now, in the description, it's essential, as we've said already, know your subject, read the description. In the description, if it says damaged, and you can see that the pictures show the same damage, etc., then it's up to you. So we're going to start going through this item, and one by one, we're going to sort of go through a list and try and explain it. We can jump backwards and forwards a bit, because as before with the new items in the Buy It Now section, they all interact with each other, and at all points you might need to just step away. So we'll start with refine the search. Now, what I mean by that is the item that I initially looked up on eBay was a 00 gauge Ginty. Now, that's a steam locomotive for people that don't know, and it's been made by many manufacturers. I've already narrowed the search down by saying 00 gauge. If I just put Ginty engine into the search engine of eBay, it would come up with N gauge, TT, O gauge, because many manufacturers have made it in all different scales and gauges. So the choice would be huge. Now, if I just want a Ginty and I want it to put on a shelf, I don't want it in a particular scale or condition, then again, this is an advantage with eBay. It gives you an enormous choice. And you can list that search by lowest price, including postage. Always include the postage in the listings when you search by price. So lowest price, say first, with including the postage, and you can work your way up the list, looking at the items, deciding what you want. But if you want specifically, say, an 00 gauge Bachmann Ginty, then you'll need to refine the search by typing those words in. Otherwise, you'll find you're just wasting your time looking through a load of items that aren't appropriate to what you want. Again, this is where people fall foul with eBay, because it's very easy to get sidetracked and think, oh, I didn't realise that was available, and then you start looking at something else. Because you don't know your subject, you don't understand what you're buying. People sometimes say, I came across it on a search and I bought it, and it turns out not to be this, or it turns out it doesn't have sound, or it turns out it doesn't even suit what I'm doing. And this is where, if you rush into something and don't follow through all of these procedures, you will end up buying things that aren't suitable for you. So refine your search down to what you want. And as I say, in this example, we're going for a 00 gauge Bachmann Ginty. Now, if you're not sure what that is worth secondhand, then go to check completed listings. Now, this is a section that I use a lot of the time. If I'm looking at items that I've not bought before, or I'm not quite sure of, and the completed listings, some will be quite high, some will be quite low, but it will give you an average. It will, over say 10 items that have finished over the last few months, look at those and work out the rough average. One may be £100, one may be as low as 60, but you'll get an average of, say, maybe they're selling for about 80. So therefore, then when we then go on to look at the actual item in the auction listings, if an item is already reaching a price of £80 or £90, you know not to bid on it. It's already overpriced, and leave it. And this is where, right down at the bottom, we're jumping about, set your price and set your limits. Go into it, into the auction, just when you're just looking. This is before you even start bidding. Decide what you want to spend. And if something is already close to or over the price that you've decided you want to spend, then just leave it. Don't be tempted to think, oh, they must know something I don't, because people don't. And on eBay, a lot of things in the auction section sell for much more than they're really worth, simply because people get drawn into the bidding frenzy and pay way over the odds for things that sometimes are only worth £50. I've seen them go for 150. Absolutely crazy prices where people just get carried away in the bidding. So refine your search, check the completed listings, and then you'll have an idea of what the item you intend to buy should be going for. Don't forget, with the auction, you're going to bid. With the new items, buy it now items, it's like buying something from a shop. I'm assuming you already know how eBay works and you've connected your card and account, etc. to eBay. But it's often confusing to people with the auction, because they see something and it's only got £3.95. So you have to check how long it's got left to go. It's normally, these auctions are over 7 days. If there's 6 days, 21 hours to go, and an item's already at £1.46, it started at 99p, don't think it's going to sell for a couple of pounds. The prices, particularly on model railway items, tend to shoot up in the very last few minutes. And we'll get to that right at the end. So check the idea, check the price, you know what you're going in for. If you see an item, check the item. Is it a retailer? Is it a private seller? If it's a retailer, then you're fairly safe, and we can go back on through the different ideas that we had in the previous part. If it's a private seller, we have to be more careful, because there are different rules with private sellers, and although the same regulations apply to eBay, to private sellers and retailers, with a private seller, you're going to have more of an argument on your hands if you try and put a claim in. Don't forget, on the auction part, once you've put your bid in and you win, you've committed yourself legally to buy it. So only bid on something once you're absolutely certain you want it and you've checked through all of these items. Don't ever put a bid in just thinking, oh, I think I like that, because if you end up winning it and then afterwards you realise it's not for you, unfortunately, legally, the way eBay works, you've bought it, it's yours, and you can't back out by simply saying, I didn't mean to bid on it. So check the feedback, check their location, and check the description. Now, these are all very important things to do. The location and the feedback we've been through before, but with a private seller, check their feedback and actually read as many as you can of the feedback descriptions. People will say, great seller, item arrived great, it was well packed, it was a good price, it was as described. These are all the things you want to be looking for. You don't want to be looking at feedback that says, I had a problem, or I had to wait, or it was just okay, or sometimes people just put a thumb up or something like that. If the seller has only got these sorts of just single word or descriptions, I'll be honest with you, I would walk away from that. I like to see what they say, confirmed purchase, etc. in the descriptions for the feedback. And that way you know that these feedback items are genuine. I'm not saying a lot of people do this, but there is a minority on eBay that have their friends, etc., put feedback on for them. This is a minority, and if you come across that, you can report that to eBay, and eBay will remove these sellers. eBay don't want these dubious sellers on there either, because it gets eBay a bad name, and eBay is a very reputable company. So we've checked feedback, we check their location. The description for retailers will normally be very good and very accurate. But for private sellers, we come down into their description. Good, fine, rare, etc. is very open to the individual's person's opinion. Now at the club, etc., and it shows, I've seen people come in with engines that I would not describe as in good condition. I would not describe them as rare, but people say, well, I've had it since the 1980s, etc. And this is where retailers know the value. They know the idea of what things sell for, but private individuals often will overestimate what the value of something is, and they will often upsell it, not in a way that they want to con you, but to them it is rare, to them they think it's an excellent runner. And when it comes to running qualities of something second-hand, that is very open to the individual. What I call an excellent runner is something that has got a good speed range and can do a very slow speed very reliably. Of course, a lot of people call a good runner as something that simply belts round and round the track at 100 miles an hour and then stops and starts again when you turn the controller up. So you have to be dubious about descriptions from the private sellers. Take everything with a little bit of a pinch of salt and look at the pictures. Now, if there are quite a lot of pictures and the item has a box, even though it's second hand, and there are instructions with it, and the item itself looks in good condition, then I would say you're moving on to the next stage. If the pictures are blurry, if there's only one picture showing one side of it, then immediately ignore it. Move on to another item. As I said earlier, there's so many items on eBay. There is no point in wasting your time and your money on something where people haven't even bothered to put decent pictures on, because it's quite likely that if they haven't bothered to put decent pictures, they won't package it very well, and it's not going to be in very good condition. It's a chance, and there's no point taking a chance when there's no need to. So check the pictures. If you've got lots of pictures, they're all in focus. As before, we've clicked on the individual pictures, we've zoomed in. Check that everything's there. Check the buffers are there, as we were doing with the new items. But particularly with private sellers and second-hand items, check the coupling rods are all there, check the buffers, check everything. Steps missing, certainly things like funnels missing, handrails torn off, shows that that engine has been played with. It's not been used by a modeller. Kids have had a go at it, and that's what course model trains are. And lots of parents will be selling these trains where their kids have used them and grown out of them. And they may well say they're in good condition and they run fine. But for a railway modeller, their condition isn't what we would describe as good. It's a sort of condition that the family would describe as good. Again, nobody's trying to deceive anyone, but the idea of what is good and bad is very much up to the individual. So if you see items missing, if the price is something you want to pay for and you think, well, I can repair that, I can replace buffers, I can replace the chimney, I maybe only want to use it for spares and it sells for £5, then again, keep watching it. If you want something in a better condition, again, walk away. No point buying something that needs a load of work when there are always going to be items coming up in better condition the next day, the next week. Always walk away from something unless you're completely happy, particularly in the auction section. So we look at the pictures. Is it good? Is it bad? We've discussed that. Good, fine, rare. Again, rare. People often describe things as rare. In actual fact, if you look on completed listings, you'll find that 20 of them sold last week. They're not rare. People think they're rare because they're from the 60s, 70s, 80s. There can't be many left. But there's loads of model railway stuff about that's 50, 60, 70 years old. And so be careful. Don't assume just because the description says it's rare and it's valuable that it is. Check your completed listings, know your subject, and don't be fooled by people's descriptions. They're not necessarily trying to fool you. They may think it's rare, but just know your subject. Again, set your price, set your limit. Because it's an auction, don't get drawn into the idea of bidding with someone else. You'll look at the prices, you've checked your completed listings, know your price. Don't go above the price, because next week, next month, something will come along and you'll get it for a price that suits you. If you set your limit at £80, don't go above it. Don't think, well, I'll go 81, I'll go 82, because that way you're going to go over. Somebody else somewhere is bidding with the same mentality as you, and suddenly the price is £110. Don't forget, every time you put a bid in, you're committing to buy that. You can't, at the end of the auction, say, it's a bit too much now, I didn't want to spend that. Every time you commit and place a bid, you're legally saying you're going to pay that for the item. So just set your limit and stick to it, because something else will always come along. And finally, you can use a sniping tool. Now, I don't use sniping tools because on an auction, I tend to bid on things where I know they're going to finish. A lot of the auctions for model railway items finish in the evening, particularly at the weekends. And I will tend to wait to the last, sometimes as late as 15 seconds. I've got a very good internet connection and I can do that. And I'll wait to the last 10, 15 seconds and put my final bid in. And I think, I think the maximum I want to pay is £85. So I'll put in £85 and press bid. The item at that point may only be, say, 45, but I'm prepared to pay up to 85 for that. Now, if I win it for less than 85, in my opinion, I've got a bargain. If somebody else wins it because they bid 90, then it's gone. It's as simple as that. You have to be quite philosophical about it, because there's always going to be something else comes along in a few days, in a few weeks. So don't set your heart on something and keep bidding. And with a sniping tool, rather than have to sit and wait and actually manually do it, it's something that does it for you. I can't recommend any sniping tools because personally I've never downloaded them, never used them. I always do it manually myself. But they do work. Have a look on the internet if you're interested in them, see which ones are recommended, and they will do that last second bidding for you. Is that morally correct? Well, that's up to you, but that's how eBay works, and that's how most people on the auction do it now, particularly with model railway items. And if you're not 100% sure what you're getting is what you want, when you get it and you've paid right up to the top of your limit, you will be disappointed, I can assure you. When I started on eBay, I did that 2 or 3 times at the start, and I paid the same, if not a few pounds more than I could have bought this item new from a retailer. It's very easy to get carried away in that bidding in them last few minutes. I must have it. You don't have to have it. You're looking for a bargain. If the bargain's gone and the price has gone up to a limit where it's at a already close to retail price, just let it go. So we'll just have a quick conclusion about eBay. Okay, so we're nearly there. I know this one's been a very talky one and it's gone on quite some time, but we've had a lot to deal with eBay. And I thought that this was quite an important episode to get out because I think it would be quite informative to people and you can get some bargains. So we're going to finish off where we started with Know Your Subject. And this can apply to certain things. I mean, with some of the Swiss and Austrian engines that I buy on eBay, because I'm so nerdy and I know the code numbers, occasionally, this is quite unusual, but occasionally somebody will describe something wrong. And if you really know your subject, like I do with Swiss and Austrian engines, because I know the code numbers, I know that their description, where they say it doesn't have sound or it's a particular gauge and it's not, I know that these descriptions are wrong and people won't bid because they think they're bidding on an engine that doesn't have sound. And I know by the code number on the end of the box that it does have sound. Of course, it could be in a wrong box, but normally when it says it's new or it's in the original box, etc., then you're covered. And on these rare occasions, I've got some incredible bargains. Similarly, a limited market. Now, buying in the UK where I am, Austrian and Swiss models, there's a limited market for it. Similarly, I've seen listings in the United States for Swiss engines and they sell for much cheaper than they would in Switzerland or Austria because there's a limited market in the United States of America for Swiss and Austrian outlined engines. Therefore, if you want to buy something unusual, a country not necessarily where you live, another example would be in the UK, you can buy Japanese prototype N gauge far cheaper in the UK, particularly second hand, than you can buy British prototype N gauge because there's not the market for it. Everyone's bidding for the British prototype in England, but not the Japanese. So you can get some real bargains. So yet again, know your prototype. And if you're not that fussed, you just want trains, go for something unusual. Don't go for something that everyone wants because you're going to pay top price. Go for something unusual, something different, and you'll have something that a lot of people around you don't have, and you'll have got it for a very good price. So is eBay worth going on? I think so. Just be careful and you'll end up with something you're very pleased with. So thanks for watching. As usual, like and subscribe if you liked it. Please share to someone because I think this episode is useful to a lot of people who buy and sell model railway stuff. And as usual, one thing left to say from me and from Desmond, who sat very patiently there the whole episode, our usual catchphrase, which as you know by now, is a nice one. I'll see you next time.